I used to spray my garden. Every time something got attacked, aphids on the roses, whitefly on the tomatoes, slugs on everything, I reached for a bottle and sprayed. It worked for a week. Then they came back, more of them, like they had told their friends. And the whole time I was killing the bees, the beetles, the ground-dwelling insects that were on my side. The spray did not know the difference between a pest and an ally. It just killed. Then I learned something that changed how I garden completely. Plants have been defending themselves against insects for hundreds of millions of years, long before humans existed and long before we invented chemicals to help them. They produce compounds that repel pests, confuse them, suffocate their eggs. They release scents that attract the predators that eat the insects attacking your vegetables. The whole system already exists. It was always there. We just stopped paying attention to it. Today, I am showing you 10 plants that stop garden pests instantly. No sprays, no chemicals, no collateral damage. Plants you grow once that protect everything around them for the entire season. Stick around because number 6 on this list repels over 200 species of pest insects and has been used as a natural pesticide for over 2,000 years. And number 10 is so effective at stopping the pest that destroys more vegetable gardens than anything else, that once you plant it, you will wonder how you ever gardened without it.
Number 1. Basil. Every gardener who grows tomatoes eventually discovers the same thing. You plant basil nearby because the recipe books say they go together in the kitchen. Then you notice your tomatoes have almost no aphid damage, and you think, lucky year. But it happens again next year and the year after, and eventually someone tells you it was never luck. Basil and tomatoes are one of the oldest companion planting combinations in existence, and the reason goes far beyond the kitchen. The volatile oils that basil releases, primarily linalool and eugenol, are intensely repellent to aphids, whitefly, and spider mites. These oils disperse into the air around the plant continuously, creating an invisible chemical barrier that confuses the sensory receptors insects use to locate host plants. The tomatoes, essentially, disappear from their radar. Plant basil in the same pot as your tomatoes or directly alongside them in a border. The closer, the better. The protective radius of the oils is strongest within about 50 centimeters. Use large-leafed varieties like Genovese for maximum oil release. Pinch out the flowering tips regularly throughout the season. A basil plant allowed to flower redirects its energy away from leaf production and produces fewer protective oils. Here's the thing that makes this genuinely satisfying. You are not just protecting your tomatoes, you are also growing one of the finest culinary herbs alive in the same pot for free. The plant that is silently defending your garden all summer is the same plant you pull leaves from for dinner. It's working 2 jobs simultaneously and complaining about neither. Plant it next to the tomatoes, eat it with them in August. That's a relationship worth cultivating. Number 2. Lavender. There's a reason lavender have been placed near wardrobes and linen cupboards for centuries. The same reason dried lavender sachets still appear in bedrooms and storage drawers across the world. Moths hate it. Specifically, the linalool and camphor compounds in lavender are so intensely repellent to moths and their larvae that the plant has been used as a natural fabric protector since ancient times. In the garden, those same compounds work against a broader range of pests. Fleas, mosquitoes, and a range of flying insects that attack vegetables are repelled by lavender's volatile oils. Whitefly, which devastates brassicas and tomatoes, avoids lavender-planted areas. And the bees, the ones you actually want, are so drawn to lavender flowers that a blooming plant becomes a wildlife corridor that brings beneficial insects into the garden continuously. Lavender wants full sun and sharp drainage. It evolved on the dry, rocky hillsides of the Mediterranean and has no tolerance for wet, heavy soil. Planted at the edges of vegetable beds, in pots positioned near vulnerable plants, or along path edges where brushing past the leaves releases the oils more actively into the air.
The protective effect is partly about the oils in the foliage, present year-round, and partly about the flowers, which during their blooming period release extraordinary amounts of volatile compounds into the surrounding air. A large lavender plant in full bloom on a warm afternoon creates a scent cloud that extends several meters in all directions. Your pests leave, your bees arrive, your garden smells extraordinary. Lavender asks for almost nothing and gives back more than any spray ever did.
Number 3. Marigolds. Most people know marigolds repel pests. Fewer people know that marigolds do their most important work underground, invisibly in the soil around their roots, and that this underground action targets one of the most destructive pest categories in any vegetable garden. Tagetes species, particularly French marigolds, produce a compound called alpha-terthionyl from their roots. This compound is toxic to nematodes, microscopic worms that live in soil and attack the root systems of vegetables, causing stunted growth, wilting, and crop failure that is often misdiagnosed as a watering or nutrient problem. Nematode damage is invisible until it is severe, and by the time you see symptoms above ground, the roots are already compromised. Above ground, the scent of marigold foliage repels aphids, whitefly, and the cabbage white butterfly that attacks brassicas. The flowers attract hoverflies, whose larvae are voracious aphid predators in large numbers. Plant marigolds around the edges of vegetable beds, interspersed between crops and in pots positioned near vulnerable plants. They grow fast, flower prolifically from early summer through frost, and cost almost nothing. They are not a pretty addition to the vegetable garden that happens to have some pest-repelling properties. They are a serious pest management tool that happens to also look beautiful. Number 4. Rosemary. If you have ever grown carrots and pulled them up to find the roots tunneled through with small white maggots, you know about carrot fly. Scilla rosae is one of the most consistently destructive pests for root vegetable growers, and it is invisible when it strikes. The female fly lays eggs at the base of carrot plants, and the hatching larvae burrow directly into the roots. By the time you see damage, the crop is already ruined. Carrot fly locates host plants by scent, specifically by the volatile compounds released by carrot foliage. Rosemary produces volatile oils so chemically similar in some ways to carrot compounds that it genuinely confuses the fly's olfactory system. In trials, interplanting rosemary with carrots significantly reduced carrot fly infestation compared to unprotected plantings. The mechanism is dual. The rosemary scent masks the carrot smell, making plants harder to locate, and the strong rosemary oils are inherently repellent to a range of flying insects, creating a general deterrent effect around any vulnerable crops planted nearby. Grow rosemary in large pots that you can position alongside carrot beds or containers. It is a perennial woody herb that, once established, provides protection year after year from the same plant with almost zero maintenance. Water it sparingly. Rosemary is drought-tolerant and hates wet roots. Give it full sun, let it grow large, and the protective effect scales with its size. Rosemary also repels bean beetles, cabbage moths, and various flies that target brassicas. It is not a single pest solution. It is a broadly protective herb that makes the entire growing area around it less attractive to the insects trying to destroy your crops.
Number 5. Nasturtiums. Nasturtiums do something that no other plant on this list does. They do not repel pests. They attract them deliberately, strategically, and concentrate them in one place so that your vegetables stay clean. This is called trap cropping, and it is one of the most intelligent pest management strategies in natural gardening. Aphids love nasturtiums. They are irresistibly drawn to them, more strongly than to almost any vegetable in your garden. A nasturtium plant in full growth becomes a magnet that pulls aphid populations away from your beans, your courgettes, your roses, your tomatoes, and concentrates them on a single sacrificial plant that you can manage in one place. When the nasturtium becomes heavily infested, you remove it, dispose of it, and plant another, clearing the pest population without spraying anything. Meanwhile, that same nasturtium, covered in aphids, is attracting hoverflies, lacewings, and ladybirds in large numbers. These are the predatory insects that eat aphids. The nasturtium becomes a feeding station that builds the predator population in your garden. By the end of the season, you have more aphid predators than when you started. Your garden becomes progressively more self-defending over time. And while all of this is happening, nasturtiums are producing those bright orange and yellow flowers that are edible, peppery, and genuinely beautiful. The leaves are edible too. The seeds can be pickled and used like capers. Your trap crop is also your salad ingredient. Your pest sacrifice is also your most cheerful garden flower. Nasturtiums are quietly one of the most multifunctional plants you can put in a garden space, and most people grow them simply because they look nice without realizing how much work they are doing underneath that cheerful surface.
Number 6. Pyrethrum. This is the one I told you about, the plant that repels over 200 species of pest insect. Used as a natural insecticide for over 2,000 years, and still, in its fresh-growing form, one of the most powerful pest deterrent plants you can put in a garden. Tenacitum cinerariifolium, pyrethrum, is a daisy-like perennial with white flowers and feathery gray-green foliage. It looks completely innocent. It is not innocent at all. The flowers contain pyrethrums, compounds so effective at disrupting the nervous systems of insects that they form the basis of many commercial insecticides. In the living plant, these compounds are present but dispersed, and the primary effect in a growing garden is repellent rather than lethal. Pests are deterred from the area without the indiscriminate killing effect of concentrated pesticide application. Plant pyrethrum along the edges of vegetable beds, in pots positioned near vulnerable crops, or as a border plant throughout the growing area. It is perennial and returns every year from the same roots. It flowers in early summer, and the dried flowers retain their properties. You can harvest and hang them in a shed or greenhouse where flies and moths are a problem. 2,000 years of use is not coincidence, it is evidence. And you can grow it in a pot for the price of a single chemical spray that would need replacing every 2 weeks.
Number 7. Garlic. Garlic in the ground does something that garlic in a bottle cannot quite replicate. A growing garlic plant releases sulfur compounds continuously through its roots and foliage. Not in a single dose, not until you mix and spray and reapply, but steadily, automatically all season long into the soil and air around it. These sulfur compounds are intensely repellent to a wide range of pests. Aphids avoid areas where garlic is growing. Carrot fly, onion fly, and various root-attacking insects are deterred by the sulfur in the soil. Japanese beetles, which devastate roses and fruit trees in some regions, avoid garlic-planted areas. Even deer and rabbits, which are not technically insects, find garlic so unpleasant that they will browse around it rather than through it. Interplant garlic throughout the vegetable garden, between rows of carrots, alongside roses, at the base of fruit trees, in pots positioned near vulnerable crops. It takes up almost no space. Its tall green leaves grow vertically without shading neighboring plants significantly. And in late spring, when you lift the bulbs, you harvest real food that you would have bought from the shop anyway. The pest repelling and the kitchen growing are the same act. The garlic defending your roses in April is the garlic you roast with your chicken in July. There is no separation between the garden function and the culinary one. They happen simultaneously from the same plant at no additional cost. This is what companion planting at its best feels like. Not a compromise, not a workaround, a system where every plant is doing multiple things at once and the whole garden functions better for the relationships between them.
Number 8. Fennel. Most plants on this list work by repelling pests. Fennel works differently. It does not push pests away. It calls in the army that eats them. Funiculum vulgare produces those delicate umbrella-shaped flower heads called umbels that land platforms for beneficial insects. Hoverflies, parasitic wasps, lacewings, and ground beetles all feed on fennel pollen and nectar, and all of them, in their larval or adult stages, are voracious predators of the aphids, caterpillars, and soft-bodied insects that destroy vegetables. A single large fennel plant in full flower can attract dozens of hoverflies simultaneously on a warm day.
Each hoverfly female lays hundreds of eggs near aphid colonies. Each larva that hatches eats hundreds of aphids before pupating. The maths of this are extraordinary. One fennel plant, through the predators it recruits, can be responsible for the destruction of tens of thousands of aphids across the surrounding garden in a single season. Plant fennel away from most vegetables. It is allopathic, meaning it releases compounds that inhibit the growth of some neighboring plants, particularly tomatoes and beans. Its best position is at the edge of the growing area, where it can recruit predators without competing with crops. Near fruit trees, along the boundary of a vegetable garden, or in a large standalone pot from which the beneficial insects disperse into the wider garden. Leave the flowers, leave the seed heads after flowering. Birds feed on them through autumn. The tall architectural stems are beautiful through winter. And all season long, the predators it recruited are working through your garden, keeping pest populations in check, doing work that no spray can replicate, because sprays kill predators and fennel grows them.
Number 9. Chives. Chives appear on almost every herb growing list as the easy, low-maintenance choice, the herb for people who are not quite sure they can keep something alive. That reputation is deserved, but it undersells chives so dramatically that most people grow them their whole gardening life without realizing what they are actually capable of. Allium schonoplasm produces the same sulfur compounds as garlic and onions, but in a milder, more continuously released form. These compounds in the soil and air around chives actively suppress certain fungal diseases, particularly apple scab and black spot on roses, which makes them genuinely valuable planted near fruit trees and rose bushes, not just as herbs in the kitchen garden. Aphids avoid chives. Japanese beetles avoid chives. Carrot fly avoids chives. Planted in a pot alongside carrots or at the base of a rose bush or around the edges of an apple tree container, chives provide a steady, season-long deterrent that requires nothing from you after planting. They are also perennial. Plant them once, divide them every 3 years when the clump gets dense, and you have an expanding supply of pest-repellent, kitchen-useful, disease-suppressing plants that cost you almost nothing and occupy almost no space. The purple flowers in early summer attract bees and beneficial insects and are themselves edible. Scattered over a salad, they add mild onion flavor and a color that no other garnish quite matches. This is the plant that was always doing more than you thought. The quiet one in the corner of the herb pot that kept the aphids off the roses and the fungus off the apple tree and fed your omelets every morning. It deserves more credit than it gets, and now you know exactly what it was doing all along. Number 10. Mint. And here we are at number 10, the one that stops the pest that destroys more vegetable gardens than any other single creature, the one that makes gardeners despair in spring when they plant out seedlings and come back the next morning to find bare stalks where there were plants. Slugs. A single slug can devastate a newly planted vegetable garden overnight. They are nocturnal, they are prolific, and they are almost impossible to manage with chemicals without simultaneously poisoning the ground beetles, hedgehogs, and birds that eat them. Slug pellets kill slugs. They also kill everything that eats slugs. Remove the predators, and the slug population explodes the following year, worse than before. Mint stops them. Not because slugs are repelled by mint the way insects are repelled by lavender or basil, but because the strong menthol compounds in mint leaves and stems create a sensory overload for the slug's chemoreceptors, the organs they use to navigate and locate food. In areas where mint is growing, slugs become disoriented, lose their navigation trails, and retreat. Crush mint leaves and scatter them around the base of vulnerable plants. Place pots of mint as a perimeter around your most vulnerable growing areas. The more contact slugs have with the menthol compounds, the more effectively their navigation is disrupted. And here is what makes mint the perfect closing plant for this list.
All of these plants, the basil, the lavender, the marigolds, the nasturtiums, the pyrethrum, the garlic, the fennel, the chives, they are all working on insects. Mint works on something different. It covers the gap that every other plant on this list leaves open. Together, these 10 plants create a system, not a collection of individual solutions, but an interconnected defense, repelling insects, confusing navigators, recruiting predators, sacrificing themselves as traps, suppressing disease in the soil. A garden with all of these plants is genuinely difficult for pests to damage, not because you intervened, because you built something that defends itself. That is what a garden is supposed to be. That is what it was for millions of years before we decided to manage it with chemicals and forgot everything the plants already knew.
10 plants, no chemicals, a garden that defends itself. You do not need a spray bottle. You need the right neighbors. Plant them this season and watch what changes. Drop a comment and tell me which pest has been destroying your garden and which plant from this list you are using to stop it. I read every one. I will see you in the next one.